They say the last bastion of consumer engagement is on the shelf. So today we're going to discuss the power of packaging as we welcome to our broadcaster André Ruyter, Chief Executive of Nampak. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today. The increasing role that packaging is playing in marketing, I think sometimes, André, we underestimate it. What is it?
Well, as you point out, it is an incredibly important way of communicating with the consumer. Not only do we communicate the value proposition of the product in question, but it's also a great differentiator. As the consumer moves down the shelves, how do we understand and how do we predict, frankly, which product he or she is going to pick? And the packaging has been demonstrated many times to be exactly that which you said, that critical key factor that sways the decision either way.
I'm going to suggest to you, though, that sometimes brands are completely unaware of it, that they see packaging as the very last full stop on the value chain, and they don't pay sufficient attention to it.
Well, there I have to disagree with you, because I think that in particular our customers, the feedback we get from them is that they understand the power of packaging, they understand how incredibly important it is to them, and they go to incredible lengths and great pains to make sure that what they convey is in fact the qualities that they want the consumer to associate with their products.
All right, let me cover it from a different angle then. Sometimes there is a disconnect between what we see in the above-the-line marketing and the packaging at the end. I don't think the brands always have that connection correct.
Yeah, I think that there's always room for improvement, granted. And in fact, you know, in some instances you have what could be called the anti-brand package, which is the no-name brand packaging, which is as bland as you can possibly want, and that is, of course, their differentiating feature. So it all depends on the understanding of the brand manager of the consumer's key deciding factors.
Which leads us in nicely into the next question then. Strategically, how should brands these days be approaching packaging? Where should their headspace be?
I think very importantly for consumers is the sustainability of packaging. In the research that we do and the feedback that we get from customers like, for example, Woolworths, they tell us that it's incredibly important for consumers to feel safe, first of all, with what the product's packaged in, how convenient the package is, can it be used for heating product in, is it something that they can associate themselves with, is there a danger of contamination? And there's a big debate going on in the industry at the moment with bisphenol A, which some people are very concerned about, and justifiably so, and we're in the process of eliminating that from our packaging. But then also we need the customer to understand how the product, and this sounds like a packaging 101 type of discussion.
Well, let's revisit it. It's important.
How does the product actually physically fit into the package? Because very often, I'm sure you've bought a box of cereal and it's only half full, right? And you feel somewhat disenchanted.
Funny enough, next question, why are cereal boxes half full? Yeah.
And the stock answer you'll get is settlement during the transit process.
Oh, the old settlement debate, yes.
Yeah. But this is where packaging plays an incredibly important role together with something like product concentration. And let's use laundry detergent as an example. For the trend these days is to go for ever higher concentrations of laundry detergent. So you add less and less to your load of washing. But that also means that you have smaller and smaller packages, which means that you have less and less shelf space, which means that you can have smaller stores with less of an environmental footprint. If you go further up the supply chain, of course, that means that you have a smaller carbon footprint because you're transporting less volume, which is all good news from a sustainability perspective.
Well, let's talk sustainability, disposability, and also this whole notion of green packaging. I understand that it's important. I think you're making the case very well. But is the customer as concerned about that as the brand is itself?
I think so.
Am I as a customer starting to raise this debate when I go into a supermarket? Am I saying to myself, is the packaging sufficiently green?
I think so. I think the South African consumer is surprisingly sophisticated. And I think anyone who underestimates the consumer does so at his peril. And I'm using the male pronoun very, very deliberately. I think that consumers are very aware. I think sometimes they are somewhat misinformed. There is a huge amount of misinformation out on the internet, and people Google things and they make interesting conclusions sometimes, but it absolutely does matter to them.
Something that you're applying your mind to as an industry is this thing called the Industry Waste Management Bill. How's that going to change the current debate?
I think it's a very significant intervention. I think that government obviously takes account of the fact that the waste industry needs some form of regulation. At this point in time, it is to a large degree self-regulating.
I was going to say hitherto fairly unregulated.
Yes,
yeah.
Correct. And in some instances it works very well. We achieve some of the highest recycling rates in the world. We exceed by far, for example, on cans, the recycling rates achieved in a sophisticated market like the US. We recycle 70% of our beverage cans, for example. The US consider themselves exemplary if they achieve 50%. So we really outperform the rest of the world. The problem, however, and this is what the Waste Management Act seeks to address, and I think government is making the correct noises in terms of the regulations, is separation at source. And this is really where the household starts to separate. Because at the moment it all gets lumped into one big truck. It all gets pressed together and then gets dumped on landfill. And then you have unfortunate people who pick through the waste and extract the valuable items. Now, from a health and safety point of view, it's not ideal. So if we can get separation at source, like we have in countries like Germany, for example, we think that that would be a very positive thing. Of course, one has to be cognizant of the fact that you don't want to go and destroy the 90-odd thousand jobs that are informally created as a result of this recycling that's going on. So that's part of the debate that we need to engage government with.
Sadly, time is against us, but André de Ruyter from Nampak, Chief Executive, thank you very much for the insight today. Appreciate talking.
Thank you.